All right. Thanks, everyone. My name is Ellen Bailey. I'm with the Utah Division of Water Quality and talking about, I'm sure, all of your favorite topic, harmful algal blooms. Um, I'm talking today about communicating those HABs. So, really, our goal is to help the public make informed recreational decisions. Um, we've I work for the state agency, and so we cover the whole state, but we get out as much as we can and try to inform the public, but really ultimately, things change rapidly or, it just is our ultimate goal is that everybody understands about harmful algal blooms and knows what to look for to stay safe. Our recreational water quality program, uh, as I mentioned, statewide. I'm going to focus today on Utah Lake. I believe this is a photo from American Fork Beach. People having fun, having a good old time, wading, picnicking, playing in the sand, all sorts of good times. So, um, here I pulled a map showing so many different access points to the lake. I think Luke mentioned there was maybe 16 communities around. There's a lot of different groups involved and a lot of different activities that people engage in around the lake. And so we want to keep that in mind when we're communicating about harmful algal blooms. What sort of recreation activities are people engaging in, and which ones are maybe fine when there's blooms occurring, or which ones might be more concerning, so we can clearly share that information. Just a lot of different agencies, cities, groups, labs that we may work with or communicate with. Um, as we were talking about different communities, there's a lot of different groups involved in communication. So as I mentioned, we want to make an informed public. So really important is ongoing education and messaging, maybe through news stories, social media, websites. We've got a lot of handouts and signage. And so that's one of our main goals throughout. We're always developing and improving that material to share. But then on the other end, we also engage in more timely information to share with the creators, on some of those popular areas, what are the conditions, what's going on. So we go out and collect data, and then we communicate with the partners around the water body. So here with Utah Lake, the health departments, the cities, the different agencies, the state park that's managing the access to the water body. So we take the data that we've collected and communicate that with the partners and come up with some really clear messaging. So we're all working together to share that same message with the public, using our different venues for that. So I'm going to break these down a little bit. Starting really with our that ongoing education, we collaborate with different partners on social media posts and educational campaigns. There's just a lot of different resources that we and with our partners have developed. Things that are kid specific or dog specific, information for vets and for doctors. And then so just to have all that information available, there's a lot of information on our website that anybody can go and learn a little bit more about. Also, news media stories are really great to share that information. I'll touch on this more in a moment, but the start of the season, we did a press release just to get people engaged and remembering, to keep an eye out that we're getting into Harvard bloom season. What to look for, and a reminder of our website that has that information. But then also working with the news media throughout the season to make sure that that information is accurate and clear and concise, and so that recreators are getting that consistent messaging. We've helped develop some permanent signage and put some of those around the state and Utah Lake. A lot of the main entrances have access points, have permanent signage that give just basic information, and it's there year round, no matter, whether there's conditions or not, so people can look at that. It's just another picture um, They're using it's a permanent sign, using more like the Forest Service, fire danger. You can change the arrow to show which level of advisory is currently at that access point. Also, community action for recreators, getting people engaged in information about harmful algal blooms is a great way to educate and get people to understand more. So we've got tips on how to reduce nutrients, which are a big driver for harmful algal blooms. We work closely with USU Water Quality Extension that has the USU HAP Squad. We really appreciate the volunteers that go out and monitor and share that information with us, but it's also a really great way for them to learn about what about their water bodies and what's happening there. And we did a public perception survey last summer. We went out to some of the water bodies where people were recreating, and also at a outdoor concert. We talked to some recreators, and those who knew about HAPS, 75% of them heard about it from news stories. 54% saw signs at a water body, and 35% heard it from friends and family. And so that news media, we looked at that and said, it's really good reminder that we need to work closely with that news media to get that accurate information out. Um, Signage, we were impressed how many people were actually looking at the signs. There's often a lot of, sign fatigue, information everywhere, but people were looking at that. So it's really good information. And then just that we can have more conversations maybe amongst our community with our friends and family. So that's kind of the ongoing, we are continuing to develop the different materials. Um, and then we've got our monitoring and collection. We started that at the end of May, early June, when recreation starts to pick up around the state. We do some sampling. We have sites that we visit routinely, at least once a month. These are priority locations with high recreational potential. Again, we're looking to visit these areas where people are engaging in recreation. And also, we're looking at areas that have had past issues of HABs. We also use information that people report that people share from through our spills line or volunteers from that Utah HAP squad. And so then we can go visit additional areas that we might not visit otherwise, or more frequently, if we just visit a site and the next week something's happening, we know we can go back out there and see what's going, so we can share that with the community. And when we go out and sample, we sample from that worst case scenario. We're looking for what is the risk, and that's really important. I guess we want to share what's the risk of people recreating, and so they can make good informed decisions based on that. Uh, It wasn't the best year for HABs this year. This was kind of the timeline. This is part of the data that I use when I go to look at our schedules and where to visit, and also communicating information with our partners. This was from late May into early October, just kind of the progression of the bloom around the lake. And so then we've got the data that we've collected and communicate that with our partners. And we send samples to a couple of different labs, one that tests for toxigenic cyanobacteria, and for the cell counts, and then another one that tests the actual toxins that are being produced. And this is on a live sheet that we can easily share with our partners so that they can have real-time information along the same as we do. And then we've got guidance that was developed in partnership with the EPA and with the different local organizations, partners in Utah, to come up with this guidance. And so then it's really, we've got that information, we can plug it into this guidance. We've got a few different levels of advisory to communicate. Health Watch is really just, we have pretty high confidence that there's an issue and want to be able to share that quickly. Little less than an advisory. But then when we have our data, we can say, is it, do we have over 100,000 cell count? That would trigger a warning advisory. Also, there's toxin levels that would trigger a warning advisory. And that's based on data that was collected, at which levels people might be getting sick if they interact with those HABs. There's also a danger advisory. Thankfully, we didn't have too much of that this year. There was one water body in Utah, but that, when you get to those higher levels of data, there's a little different messaging to make sure that people are aware of that increased risk. It could be potentially more long-term effects or lethal effects from those toxins. And then, so once we've got that, we communicate with our partners. We've all come up with a plan together on which level of advisory, if any, that we should be sharing. Then we can have that message to share with the public. And so we share that information on our website, habs.utah.gov. And, we talk about warnings and advisories, but we also really want to share, we go out to a lot of places, that it's actually looking good so people can feel confident about going out there, not to say we haven't missed something, we try to put a date with it, but, when things are good, there's no limit to the recreation activities. But then when there is an issue, we are trying to make it really clear which activities are safe and which ones are, have more risk associated with them. So we have these different advisory signage. This is more of a temporary sign that then the managers of the water bodies can put out at the different access points that have really clear images to show which activities might be recommended or discouraged. So in this case, swimming, good chance of ingesting the water is less, is not something we'd recommend. Whereas going out and boating, I love boating on Utah Lake. It's not a problem. Paddling, there's some level of caution. Are you going to stay in your boat or, is it real tipsy and you're going to end up swimming? So there's those kinds of things and making it really clear, what levels of issues there might be. That's really all I wanted to talk about today. Ways I have that we've got our science-based guidance, coordinating closely with those many partners, especially that water body like Utah Lake that's so large and has so many different communities around it, and having really concise, clear communication. And that's all like that. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions or feedback. We have lots of more information on our website, habs.utah.gov. Thanks.